So when it comes to filibustering the debt limit, I mean, you said this before, it was tried in 2011. Are you actually willing to go past the deadline the Treasury set? And is there a way to do that? It looks like they have 60 votes already.
Well, the interesting thing is, in 2011, right after the big Tea Party tidal wave, we had all these new conservatives. We said we should use the raising the debt ceiling as leverage to get spending reform. So I've introduced cut, cap, and balance, which would cut the deficit in half, cap spending, and actually introduce a balanced budget amendment. Instead, we now have the Republican establishment doing the opposite. Instead of using the debt ceiling as leverage, they're actually using it as a way to actually bust the caps. So this is I can't overstate how bad this deal is and what it is destroying the very understanding of Republicans even being conservative, because we're going to bust the caps for military spending, we're going to bust the caps for welfare spending, and we're going to give to the president unlimited authority to borrow money through March 2017. It's the worst piece of legislation I've seen since I've been in Congress.
But just quickly on the deadline, you willing to go past the Treasury's deadline?
I'll do whatever I can. Whether or not we can physically do it, some of it depends on when the bill comes to the floor. Some of it depends on whether or not how many votes we can get. But I'm not going to make it easy on them, because I think this is terrible for the country. It's a disaster, and it's going to add more debt. It's going to add, who knows? We don't even know how much debt they're going to add in the next year and a half.
Janet?
Senator, what are you hoping to accomplish in the debate today, and how are you approaching it any differently than your two previous debates?
I'd like every American to know that I'm one who says enough's enough, we shouldn't add any more debt, and we should be using the debt ceiling to control spending. I also want everybody to know that I'm the only fiscal conservative on the stage. And the reason that's true is that you're not fiscally conservative if you're for unlimited spending for the military. We have to control spending across the board, and I don't think anybody else on the stage is really willing to do what I'm doing, and that is to say across the board we need to control spending.
Sean, CBS, you got a question? Good. All right. Hunter?
Yes. Senator, we've seen Ben Carson sort of rocket to the front of the polls. Why do you think that's happened, and do you expect your numbers are going to improve after tonight?
We hope so. We don't know yet, and I think that the polls are very loosey-goosey in a way, because we're polling undecided people. 3/4 of every poll is undecided. And not to be critical of the media, but I will, the media doesn't quite understand what these polls represent. They're a moment in time of uncommitted voters. 3/4 of every one of these polls are uncommitted, have not made a final decision, and so we're asking them, well, who would you support now? So there's a wide variation, and there will be wide fluctuation through January. It's been that way ever since presidential campaigns began polling. The polls are very loosely correlative at this point, and we think that we're right in the middle of the mix, and we plan on being there in the end.
We've seen Jeb Bush have to cut staff and cut salary. Do you think your campaign is set up to sort of weather this and get through to January?
We're very, very conservative with taxpayer money and with donor money, and so we have been from the very beginning. We have $2 million in the bank. We plan on keeping that money in the bank and then spending it as needed when we're ready to go on TV. But no, we're very, very frugal with our money, and we have plenty of money to make it through to the very end.
Thank you so much.
Sean, Flash?
Say a little louder.
Sure. When you make it a point, urging you to focus on the Senate race.
It's funny, the people who write that, I don't think it's really accurate. They seem to have a narrative to write that. I don't even have an opponent in Kentucky. So people writing stories that I have these dire warnings and need to, quit running for president and only run for the Senate. I'm running for both. 75% of the Republican leadership in Kentucky voted to let me run for both. We had a huge gathering of 300 of the Republican leaders in Kentucky, and 75% voted to allow me to run for both. So we think we're in a great position, not only in Kentucky, nationally, and we're going to continue working on it, and we plan on being in until voters say otherwise.
Senator, what do you feel you have to do to break through in this campaign, and do you feel, given that tonight's debate and the one in about 10 days, 2 weeks, is also supposed to focus on the economy, do you feel that this is when you, with your unique message on the economy and debt and all of that, you've got to use this to springboard yourself into greater contention?
nobody can really predict when someone will break through and all of a sudden everybody loves your message. I continue to put forth the same message, and I have since I ran for office, that we're borrowing way too much, $1 billion a minute. That the only way you can truly be fiscally conservative is if you're conservative with all the money, whether it's military or domestic. And I'm also right in the middle of, I think, the biggest news story right now in our country, and that is this deal that the Republicans have made with the president, which I think is a rotten to the core deal, and that I'm going to filibuster as soon as I get done with this presidential debate thing. I'm going back to Washington, and I will commence filibustering it starting tomorrow afternoon.
And is it going to be a Rand Paul filibuster or a filibuster filibuster?
We'll see.
Last question, Igor.
Hey, Senator, thank you so much. Donald Trump is no longer the front runner in Iowa. I was wondering if you had any words of advice for him in his great time of adversity.
I think maybe you should get out of the race.
Thank you, guys.
We want to do one more. She won't
Okay.
right now.
Just tell us a little bit about your debate preparations. What are you doing this afternoon?
I have a really thick book on the economy, Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, and I'll be sleeping on the Wealth of Nations and hoping I absorb some of it. No, seriously, I think we're done kind of preparing for the debate, but we think of questions that might be asked, we think of responses, we think of how best to put forward my message, and I think the message that distinguishes me from all the others, that I'm the only true fiscal conservative on the stage, and I hope that comes out tonight. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.